Agenda's been circulated and presented, so I'm going to ask the Director of Corporate Administration to read aloud the notice of the public hearing, please.
This public hearing is being held to hear from anyone who may be affected by the proposed changes to the City's zoning bylaw through bylaw number 4254. This zoning amendment is based on the recommendations from the Residential Development Committee and from Council and affects all residential areas within the city. Any responses that were received at previous public hearings regarding this issue were included in this public hearing agenda for reference. The following letters were received specifically in response to bylaw number 4254, which is the zoning amendment currently being considered by Council. 3rd Avenue and how the bylaw would be enforced. Riza Saidi, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, with concerns regarding the bylaw creating hundreds of non-conforming properties. Dwayne Stewart from Western Canadian Properties Group Limited. And there was one anonymous letter from someone living on 18th Street with concerns regarding snow removal, parking issues, and limited access to fire hydrant located in a driveway. An information letter that summarized the changes in this bylaw that have shown interest in residential development. A copy of that letter was available on the table just outside the door. Kevin Henderson, Director of Development Services, will now provide a summary on those changes.
Good evening. So I'll just briefly go over the proposed changes in bylaw 4254. Secondary suites only permitted in single-family dwellings in an RS2 zone. Secondary suites not permitted in duplexes in any zone other than a CD2 zone. Any dwelling that contains a secondary suite or coach house must provide a parking stall for that secondary dwelling unit. Only one secondary dwelling unit per property is permitted in an approved zone. In other words, cannot have secondary suite and coach house on one property. Maximum accessory building size is proposed to be increased from 750 square feet to 780 square feet. Maximum size of secondary suite will be calculated based on 50% of habitable above ground floor space of the primary dwelling. The proposed changes do not apply to either CD1 or CD2 zones unless expressly stated, and repeal of zoning amendment bylaw number 4243-2014. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. So the next item on our agenda is item 3. We have correspondence and delegations. The first item, 3.1, we have a letter from Eileen Hansen in regards to the proposed zoning amendment impacts to her property. So Councillor McFadden moved for receipt. Seconded. Councillor Wilbur. Discussion. Any comments? Mrs. Hansen?
Mrs. Hansen is not here today.
Okay. Thank you. So, all in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 3.2, we have a letter from Mr. Riza Saidi in regards to the non-conforming properties issue that he's outlined in his letter. Could I have a motion for receipt?
I'll make a motion to receipt.
Wilbur, seconded. Councillor O'Sheila. Any discussion? Is a gentleman in the audience that wanted to speak to it? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. 3.3, we have a letter from Mr. Dwayne Stewart, Vice President of Western Canadian Properties in regards to the residential development bylaw, and Mr. Stewart's requested to make a presentation.
Good evening, and good evening, Dawson Creek. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to 5254. We're involved in the execution of the official community plan, specifically at Sunset Ridge and Harvest View. And as I've spoken to council in the past, we're excited to see that coming together as we begin the first of our 50-acre development that we have in that area. We declare that a work in progress at this time. This is the overall area. 17th Street runs north-south to your right. You can see Lepke Park on the bottom of the development. And then our portion is in the bottom left-hand corner. The balance of the official community plan in this neighborhood development area, I'd encourage the community to read it. It's available online. And it is a well-thought-out, intense document that gives a variety of types of housing and intended uses. You can see them on the right-hand side. And we predominantly have two types, multifamily and single-family village residential. When we first came to council, due to some language that was not quite as tight as council wanted to see in the bylaw, we were suggested to us that we should rezone it into something called CD2. CD2 is the brown portion that you see on the left-hand side there. And in that zone, we were permitted to put suited duplexes. And that is, we also have coach houses. We have something unique, somewhat unique in Dawson Creek, and then we have alleyways. You can see the alleyway indicated on the map there. And off 17th Street, we don't have any direct access. We cannot park vehicles directly. We cannot access 17th Street by agreement with the city. And so the city's agreed to plow that one alleyway that you see running north-south, and we'll be plowing the alleyway running east-west that you see in that simple diagram there. But one thing I wanted to make clear, both to the community and to council, is that we've decided not to request a further expansion of CD2. This bylaw, as is currently written, enshrines CD2 because there was some concern about the way it was originally written, that there was a missing technical piece, and staff asked council to bring it back forward in bylaw 4243. That's being rescinded in 4254, and it's kind of being put back the way it was originally written. And we thank council for doing it in the way that it was originally done, because we've already built all of the units that are going to have the suited duplexes, and all of the homes that have suites in the north side have all been applied for under building permit. So I wanted to make sure that the community knows that CD2 has been effectively built out or permitted out and won't be expanded any further under our expectations. So that there shouldn't be too much controversy about that, hopefully. Dawson Creek. We believe in Dawson Creek a whole lot. We've come here since 2011. We bought here first in 2012. And we've brought hundreds of people to Dawson Creek and Fort St. John to let them know what the Peace region is all about. We've had lots of staff that have moved up here and currently call Dawson Creek or Fort St. John home. We've brought hundreds of jobs to both communities, and we intend to provide not only quality housing for residents, but quality housing, affordable housing that investors have used to bring their money into this community, and we look forward to doing it further. And you've become a top investment town in British Columbia. People have noticed the good work that Dawson Creek has done, and that continues to be the case. You have a great reputation as a city that you can work with. One thing that this bylaw doesn't do that 4244 did do, and that was business licenses for suite operators. I think it's a really good idea that you had in that original bylaw, and it didn't make it into this bylaw. And the reason I recommend it is that it will give City Hall a better relationship with the owners of suites, and will also give you some teeth. It gives the emergency services people the ability to understand what they're getting into if there's a fire. If they have to get into a home after hours, they'll know that a suite is present. The construction of that suite will be under the BC Building Code, and you can ensure that that's the case. By having that relationship with suite operators, if there are changes or if there are issues with parking, if you receive a letter like you've gotten today, you know who to talk to without having to go through a long process. And there's a clear compliance or non-compliance differentiation between someone that decides not to get a business license and somebody that does get a business license and participates in the process. That results in concise rules that can resolve complaints, and everybody can understand that. In order to get your business license, you need to know what your suite needs to look like, how parking is going to work, how snow clearing is going to work, how you're going to interact with your neighbors, etc. And it provides a safe and secure and affordable housing option for residents. One of the things that we've seen happen in many communities that don't undertake a secondary suite bylaw that the investor and the owner community can get a hold of and can abide by is it goes underground. and you get rooming houses, which is a big problem in some parts of the community. And there's a letter here tonight that talks about that. Regulating parking is absolutely one of the things that we hope to see out of this bylaw. Internally at Western Canadian Properties Group, we've promoted a 1 parking stall per bedroom rule. So we have on each of our designs enough parking on site for 1 stall per bedroom. And we're able to do that mostly because of the alley access that we have in our property. And that's an advantage that some people don't have in the community. So the bylaw that you have in front of you today does help with parking. And we really think that's great. But the next step, which I would encourage a separate process, is really beef up your parking bylaw. Make sure that you've got a parking bylaw with some teeth and a snow clearing policy that is in tune with that. If you end up having, park on one side of the street, on odd days or whatever might be required to make sure that the snow clearing is taken care of as well. You've got that additional off-street parking requirement, and we think this is definitely the right direction. Rooming houses, obviously you can't address that in this bylaw, but we're anti-rooming house. We don't believe in it, and we want to make sure that the community does pursue a proper suite bylaw as you're doing now, and that you deal with rooming houses as the community sees fit. We know that a household is defined, this is what how Fort St. John defines a household, and I thought it was very tight. But I really encourage you to do a separate and specific bylaw around rooming houses. I don't think this bylaw can address that entirely. Market demands in British Columbia have always, or for a very long time, called for secondary suites as an affordable method of housing and as a mortgage helper for many people. A legal suite does have to meet the BC Building Code, which covers things like fire egress, ceiling heights, facilities, suite size, et cetera, et cetera. Bylaw 5254, however, asks for 2 things. It asks for you to comply with the building code, but it then simultaneously changes the building code. What you've done is you've asked for a change in the definition of a size of a suite. You've gone from the 40% of the entire home. The definition change they've asked for is they've said 50% of the above grade square footage. Versus the old rule, the rest of British Columbia follows the rule that says 40% of the gross area of the home. And we just ask that you stick with the BC Building Code. Because if parking and if the size of suites is an issue, you have addressed that, and I encourage you to address that, but changing the size of a suite doesn't provide a lot of power or teeth to you, and it just basically provides a way for people to go underground with their basement suites. This is a home that we've designed in our area, and it's $465,000. It's 2,700 square feet. The suite is 960 square feet, which is 90 square meters, and that's as big a suite as we're allowed to do under the building code. It's a small home. It fits on a tight-sized lot. They've put some math on there to help people understand that this is why people put suites in their homes. It makes them affordable, and by making the suite 300 square feet smaller, we have to eliminate a bedroom because you need a living room, you need a dining room, you need a kitchen, and you basically end up with taking the bedroom out, which doesn't do anything if I've already provided appropriate parking on site for this home. So we really question the purpose of changing the size of a suite. We'd ask that you stick to the BC Building Code when it comes to the suite size. It's the only change that we're asking for in 5254. We want you to stick with the official community plan, and we think that future developers should get the same consideration that we were shown and provide different affordable housing options for the community. We have gotten around the idea of no longer providing suite duplexes in our development, but I encourage you to consider the value that a suite duplex gives to people that need affordable housing. We were involved with a community member that unfortunately she and her family lost their home to a fire before Christmas. Where she ended up was in one of our competitors' suite in a duplex, because that was what was available and it was an affordable option for her. So I encourage you to consider affordable housing in the community. And that is all I have to say. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll be available for questions afterwards. Do I have any questions now?
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. So, need a motion to receive that letter. Sorry, we made the motion, we just haven't voted on it, I don't think. Did we? Did we
No,
approve that?
we did not make a motion on this
No? So I need a
presentation.
motion to receive the
I'll make a
information moved by
motion to
Councillor Wilbur, seconded by Councillor Rogers. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 3.4, we have a letter from Mr. Ralph Vanderwall, President of Dawson Hills, who's also in attendance. So I have a motion to receive the correspondence. Now I'll have to speak. Councillor McFadden, seconded. Councillor Rogers. Mr. Vanderwall? Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, people of Dawson Creek. I'm not going to read the whole letter to you because you provided a copy to everybody present here tonight. But to put things into perspective, my company bought the land up in the Park Hill neighborhood in 2007 when there wasn't a lot of investment going on in town. And now with LNG on the horizon, which many people think is a go, the town is definitely under growth pressure. So I'm not going to echo the same sentiment that you've heard before from developers. Although I do agree with most of the views echoed by developers, especially the ones you just heard a few minutes ago. But I'd like to put it in perspective from living in a small community, living in a small town. Right now, you can classify me as a city slicker. I do live in Vancouver. But prior to 2013, my wife and my family and myself, we lived in Canmore, Alberta. And if you're familiar with that town, we moved there in 1993. The coal mines had closed. There were 3,000 people in town. When we left in 2013, there were about 15,000 full-time residents and possibly another 10,000 part-time residents because it's only 1 hour from Calgary. So a lot of people have second homes there. A lot of Americans and even Europeans have second homes there. So what happened during the roughly 15 years of massive growth? Prices increased by over 300% and the population increased by over 300%. Several councils took all kinds of actions to let that growth happen, but one of the things that quickly became a very hot button item was affordability. I just want to put this in perspective. We just did an appraisal on our project up there, and our appraiser said that values increased roughly 12 to 14% over 13 to 14. He thinks that as LNG starts to manifest and starts to grow, you get influx of more and more workers, which you're already seeing now. He estimates an increase of 6% over this year, 12% over 16, and 9% over 2017. So if you put that into perspective, a house that now costs $350,000, if it grows for the next 5 years the way the appraiser thinks, and then it levels off to maybe 3 or 4% value increase per year, that $350,000 house will be $600,000 10 years from now. Just want you to think about that for a second. Because when I heard this in Canmore in the late 90s, nobody believed it. You go to Canmore right now, and the average house is just under $1 million. It's very similar to Whistler. Now, growth happened there because of different pressures. So the issue that really affects us here is the secondary suites. If I would live in this small community, I would say, yes, there are rooming houses that shouldn't be there. There's 6 or 7 guys living there. They're revving up their pickup trucks 5 o'clock in the morning. I can't get out of my driveway. If I would look at the hood of my car and would live here, I would say, vote, do something. Put something in a bylaw to stop this. Absolutely. However, 5 to 10 years in the future, my son would like to live here if I live here. And how does he do that? How do you qualify for a $600,000 home? If you have a legal suite, you can get a mortgage helper. But very important, what happened in Canmore is the following. Many local businesses over time closed. And I can already see all the signs around town, help wanted here, help wanted here. I've got a fellow who's investing with us in our group who lives in Fort St. John. He said he owns 50 trucks. He could easily build it up to 100 trucks if he could just find the people and if they could just find a place to live because they can't afford to already now. So again, without taking the stance of a developer, because we will be highly affected, we've got 87 units that will no longer be able to have a secondary suite. Many of those units are reserved, so now we have to go back to the drawing board. If you pass this bylaw, talk to our buyers and say, guess what? You can invest, but you'll only have the one suite. I would really focus on affordability over the next 5 to 10 years, and especially for your locals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. Any questions?
What's the guarantee that they stay affordable and that the prices don't keep going up on the rent?
While nobody has a crystal ball, I don't think there's any guarantee, but I think in any market, the more choice you have, the more units available, the lower the price.
Thank you.
The suites that you're talking about, are these suites in a single-family house or are these suites in a duplex?
With the zoning that we currently have, all our RS1 units would no longer be able to have suites. Plus, we are planning to build 56 half duplex units, so 32 full duplex units, and those duplex units obviously won't have a legal suite. So that's a total of about 87 units.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor McFadden?
Do you have any comment about the size, the proposed sizes of the suites?
I agree with Mr. Stewart on his view on stick with the BC Building Code. However, we are working on Plan B because if the town votes this way, obviously we will have to respect that. And we can make a suite fit in roughly 600, 650 square feet, which would work in our designs. But I fully agree with Mr. Stewart that if you make them a little bit larger, especially a daylight suite, you offer a really nice option for the people living above as a mortgage helper. As they say here in this guideline for secondary suites as well, for elderly people, there's somebody in the basement. So I would prefer if you stick to the building code. However, to us, that's not a big stumbling block.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Are these questions allowed only for council, or are we up here allowed to ask questions as well?
Go ahead.
I'm not sure. I just.
No, we're absolutely, we're encouraging public hearings, so.
Okay. Well, to address the affordability issue, like, I'm always thinking affordability is a good thing as well, but we don't have to look at it like the only affordability will come in a single-family home with a suite in the basement. Affordability can be in the sense of apartment buildings and eightplexes, and there's all kinds of ways to get density and affordability without having to think it only comes in a single-family home. You know, as part of the residential development committee, I think that it's important that council recognizes that, you know, it was council that asked for the committee, and the committee did their job, and now to, you know, rescind what the committee actually proposed would be a real negative option. So there's a couple items there that I wanted to express.
Thank you.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
In my former hometown in Canmore, they've got Bylaw, which is permanently affordable housing, although I don't want to give you any ideas because I am a developer. Each developer must provide a few units called PAH, permanently affordable housing, which means if you buy a unit at, for example, $350,000, which in Canmore is affordable, it can only increase in price according to a certain index, which is 1.5% per year. So that way, speculators don't buy those units because you're not going to flip them and make a lot of money on them.
Thank you. Yes.
When we bought our property 30 years ago, it was classed as single-family dwelling, and then the city allowed two duplexes put in. Last year, we had 16 pickups parked at one. Now, I mean, why is the city allowing this? I phoned the city hall, and they said we can't do nothing. So, you know, if you've got a single-family dwelling area, why are you allowed, like last year, you guys allowed a garage to be built with dwellings on top in our area. Now, this is wrong. I don't care. I'm paying good taxes to you guys, and I bought a single-family area, and that's what it should be.
Okay. So can I just get your name, please? So, and if somebody does speak, I just for the minutes that we can get your names recorded, if you don't mind. Sorry, thank you. And so to answer that, part of the reason we're here tonight and part of the reason we're dealing with the residential development is exactly some of these components that have been addressed and identified by the community and by council and by the investment and developers and contractors. And so that's exactly the purpose tonight. As the official community plan changed in 2010, it brought different zonings into the community along with the different interpretation of the bylaw, and now we're feeling the impacts of that. That's why we're here tonight.
And also, why are you allowing all the big trucks and the motorhomes and everything parked anywhere they want to? This was a bylaw a lot of years ago that they weren't allowed to park in your yard or, you know, stuff like this. On the street, there's some motorhomes and trailers parked on the streets.
And that's part of the parking bylaw in terms of number of commercial vehicles you're allowed to park in the area and in the residential area. And so that's all components in terms of what we're concerned with, in terms of what we see and why we're here tonight, and we're trying to move it forward.
Your Worship?
Councillor McFadden?
I didn't hear your comment about a garage with something on top of it.
Yes, there's a garage that was built on 116th Avenue, and they've got living quarters on top. Now, that was last year. Now, our area was supposed to be single-family units. When we bought that property, that area was all supposed to be single-family dwelling.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I'm going to move to item 3.5. We have, sorry? Yes.
Hi, my name is Peter Bob. I'm the former resident in Dawson Creek last 9 years. Okay, my name is Peter Kwok, and I'm owner-operator in the Central Motel, and some people may know me. And I'm pretty to live here, and this town is growing pretty good. And there was a time, and the town was very busy, and not enough room, and some people looking forward to a place to stay for the work or something like that. As a business operator, my concern is there was some problem of that, like we call unfair competition, because of that we pay all the taxes, and some people putting the A&W or some other coffee shop and putting the advertising, we rent our basement for so much, and half price of the motel price we're charging for. And then, so that's, I say it's unfair competition. Also, the people are renting those oil workers coming here 2 or 3 weeks, and then they pay for the cash or whatever. The money they pay for is maybe the landlord's not really reporting their extra income or whatsoever. And we paying and also paying taxes and hire a lot of employees to cleaning and maintaining and carpenters and or mechanics and gas or electricians. So I hope that this, council recognized there was a problem, and because the business is not as good as it used to be. Also, we are squeezed by that another problem with the camp allowed by the BC Land Commission.
So that's
There are
separate,
so
Peter,
many
if I
people,
can,
yeah.
that's separate. And we're here
I
tonight
know,
to talk
what I'm
about the
saying is
residential development.
we are squeezed by both sides of that pressure.
Right.
So I think that the council have to look at the business owners, how we are feeling, okay?
I hear that. Tonight, this is a public hearing about the residential development bylaw, as it impacts the development of the residential development in our community. So I hear your concern, and thank you. So now we are going to, I'm just going to clarify something. So we do have, at the end of, once we get through our correspondence that people have submitted for the public hearing, we are going to have an opportunity for comments, and I will call for that. If we can, I want to get through the correspondence that we have received for the residential bylaw this evening as a matter of the process for our agenda, and then we will get to anybody that has a comment or wishes to provide input to it. I will give you that opportunity. So we do have a letter, item 3.5. It was from an anonymous, and it was regards to safety issues. So if I can have a motion for that item. Councillor Wilbur, seconded. Councillor Schumann. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 3.6, we have letters that were submitted to our January 5th council meeting. Councillor Parslow, seconded Schumann. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. 3.7, we had letters submitted from December 17th, 2014 council meeting, which were included. Councillor McFadden, received. Councillor Rogers, second. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3.8, we have letters from our November 17th public hearing that we held in regards to the bylaw. Motion, Schumann, seconded Parslow. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now, this time I really would like to, and the purpose of obviously having a public hearing this evening was to allow the opportunity at the public to be able to come this evening and provide some input or feedback to us in regards to the proposed bylaw. So I'm going to call for the first time for comments. Anybody that would want to make a comment in regards to the bylaw, please take the opportunity now.
My name is Pat Rorson. I'm a land developer. I left my development hat at home, and I came down and I read this bylaw, and I think that a lot of good hard work's been put into it. I think you've met requirements that the residents need for the development of the parking issues and whatnot. So whoever did this, I'd like to thank them because they did a hell of a job. And I support it 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. So further comments or questions or input? Yes, Christina.
I'm Christina Wards. I just, I'm coming on behalf of the community residents. Development's great, but there has to be a good balance, and I don't particularly want any the suites and duplexes and that built next to me. I just don't. I almost purchased a house up on the hill in the new development. It was all fancy and nice, and now I'm so happy I didn't, because there's people parked all over the street. There's no place for snow removal. There's parking. It's dirty. I like my little area where I am. I'm not telling you where I live because I don't want everybody down there. No, but we have to make sure we keep the community and where the people in the community want to go. I don't want to be. I don't know the fellow's name. I've been to Canmore many times, and I don't want it to be like that, because in the lots of times of the year, it's a ghost town, because it's just the people who can afford to live there are there, and then they go home to Calgary or whatever. We need a community here. We need a place for my son to play road hockey. We need the parks for people to enjoy. We need lots of green space. I don't mind developing, but we got to keep in mind what's the end goal. Do we want to be a duplex city, or do we want to be a community? And I think we got to keep our community in mind.
Thank you. Further comments, questions, input?
My name's Peter Batchelor. I just like to echo Pat's comments there. I think you've gone a long ways to improve this bylaw with this amendment, especially regarding the requirement to have parking for every extra suite. That would go a long way to get that on-street parking mess we've got now. I think that's about all I have.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks, Peter.
My name is Mitch Collins. I'm a local realtor, investor, and a developer in both Fort St. John and Dawson Creek. Just wanted to reiterate, everybody knows that we are an area of huge transition right now, but I think we need to keep in mind that some of the changes to the zoning bylaws are going to have large impacts on the end consumers that are moving into this community. And that's who I'm here to kind of represent today, is the end consumers. The average age in Dawson Creek and in Fort St. John is less than 30 years old. So the people that I want to represent are people that are moving here for the first time, are finding it very hard to just afford to live, let alone with the new impacts coming with LNG development. Site C's been approved. We're going to see some impacts here in Dawson Creek with that. But keeping that in mind, I do agree that suite duplexes in general, at least the way they've been built so far, does create too many issues around parking and snow clearing. We've seen that at the north end of town right now. And I was involved in that a bit, and what I think would be a really good compromise, stick with the single-family homes. I mean, I agree with Dwayne Stewart on leaving suite mixes at 40%, as long as we have the correct snow clearing and parking considerations. Those are the issues that these properties bring up. I think with suite duplexes, without a larger size for a suite duplex, you can't really mitigate the damage that those create. We've seen that in the north end. There's some issues on a couple streets right now that you're not going to be able to resolve. You're going to have off-street snow clearing, and it's something you can't really fix. Anyway, again, I wanted to say that I would agree with single-family properties as they currently exist. A good example that I can throw that has been built in Dawson Creek is what Carl Shanders built at the north end on 17th. I think that's a great example of single-family homes that offer affordable housing for people that are coming into town, but don't create parking and snow issues. I mean, if you go up on that street, those things are not prevalent there. I mean, a little bit more than single-family, owner-occupied, but it's not the big mess you're going to find with suite duplexes in town. The properties also promote housing affordability for both owners and renters. So if you have a young family moving in, they can purchase a home, generate income coming in from the basement suite, and we have a win-win situation there, both for the city and residents. Now, I know when I started off at 21 years old, that's how I got my start in the door. I bought my first 5 properties, renting out the basement suites, and we were able to offer below-market rents and create really good housing accommodations for folks. So I think that's something that should be, the end consumer should really be kept in mind with that. I think the 40% is a win-win with the city, again, as long as the parking and snow clearing are kept in mind. On top of that, I'd like to see that it's, I want to make sure that every builder and developer, regardless of the zoning they're in, are treated fairly. So there was some things in the zoning bylaw that got put forward where we wanted to see certain types of zoning exempted from changes. And I don't think that's, for anybody's best interest. I think you want to have a fair and equal playing field for every development group coming into town. So before I stop, I'd like to just reiterate that young families are what's going to keep driving this community going forward. The average age here is below 30 years old. That's really, really important to keep in mind. And these people are traditionally just starting off young families. I mean, if we reduce the size of these suites, you're going to end up with a one-bedroom suite, and that's typically not going to work for the people that are living in this community right now. So anyway, with LNG, with Site C coming forward, I would like to see personally single-family suites being kept the same with RS2 zoning, and I think that's a win-win for the city and the residents locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Any questions? Thank you.
My name is Barbara Swale. I have a question about the parking requirements. I have seen front yards that are just basically mud hollows for pickup trucks, and I'm wondering what in the requirement, in my quick perusal, I haven't found it. What is allowed by way of, or the requirement to provide adequate parking? So people have existing driveways. If they need more parking space, where are they going to find that?
Kevin?
Through your worship, so currently our bylaw prohibits the width of a driveway as it enters a street. Once it's up and onto the property, the individuals certainly can spread out onto their property, like you speak about. We don't have any particular bylaws about percentages of green space or anything like that at this point. So once, other than once you're off the street, pretty much.
But there is specific allowable access onto the streets in terms of what you have, the minimum or maximums for the driveway size on the street.
Is it possible to, thanks. Is it at all possible to control how that's done? Just aesthetically speaking, some neighborhoods are looking pretty trashy, with people literally just driving onto the front lawn over and over again without bothering to create a parking situation that's actually a parking spot. And I'm sure that could be an onerous cost. However, maybe that's defrayed by having it. At any rate, if that's left wide open, I'm wondering what that's going to look like. And I've seen some that aren't what you'd want in your neighborhood. Is there a way to amend that?
Further.
Yep.
There's just a few things that, my name's Rod Graham, sorry. A few things that I've been thinking about as everybody's been speaking. And the first thing is about the snow removal. I used to live in Mackenzie, BC, and they had times that you weren't allowed to park on the street. And they had the most efficient snow removal of any place I've ever lived. It was just amazing. And they hooked you up and towed you away right away if you were parked in the street. So they were able to do it efficiently, but it's just a matter of getting the signage out there and telling people, you know, it's got teeth, we're going to have good, clean streets so it's safe for the kids and safe for everybody. Actually, driving around town the last couple of weeks, I won't say, I guess appalled's a little strong, but it's pretty dangerous out there. And that just has to do with having proper snow removal procedures. Timing, that's not a parking thing at all. That's just getting people off the street, knowing they're going to get a big fine and towed away if they don't get off the street. The other thing is, I noticed you have lots of laneways in town. Well, maybe we should keep up with the laneways because it's a snow community. That would give people more chance to use the back for parking. And I think suites are something every community in BC, especially the ones on the coast and that, they've all struggled with this thing. And the bottom line is, when people need housing, they're going to find a place to go. And if you don't have legal suites, you're going to have illegal suites. And Vancouver's fought that ever since I was a little kid. That's 60 years ago. We had an illegal suite in our house, actually. And there was people living in there that couldn't afford to live anywhere else. So the bottom line is, you can't keep people from living somewhere. And people are coming into this community, and the thing to do is make sure that they got a safe community and a safe place to live. And that has to do with having good fire, good fire access and all these different things we're talking about. I like the parking idea, parking for every unit, that's good. But I think you can take it too far. Like, what about the guy who decides to have a dozen kids and eventually all those kids have a car? We could get really ridiculous here, right? So you can't legislate life sometimes. Things are going to happen and you can't do anything about it. But the thing is, I think we have to be prudent and build a good community here, because I really like Dawson Creek. I've only been here for a little less than a year. But yeah, those are just some thoughts that I'm having. But snow removal, let's get the snow off the street.
I was just talking for snow removal, just to be clear, is that when you have 10 different driveways with 4 different parking spots, there's nowhere to put that snow, even if you did clear it. So the guy on the end who has a single family home gets 10 other people's snow in their yard, and they have to clean the gravel, and they have to wait for all the ice to melt in the spring, and all these people just have concrete driveways for the whole block. And one guy at the end who's trying to have a single family life there, or was there before all of them, gets all their snow. So I'm not complaining about the snow removal, because I think it's great, but in those areas, it's harder to get the snow off the street, and then there's nowhere to put it. So the concrete driveways don't allow the city to put the snow anywhere, and you're not going to haul it all away. So you got to think about, do I want 10 different driveways of concrete in front of me where none of them get snow, and then the last person on the block or the one across the street gets everybody's snow and gravel, because there's nowhere to put it.
And Christine, there is currently in the bylaw, you can't go yard to, or property line to property line with your driveway. So that has been changed. Thank you.
My name is Josh Ellenbrand. I actually just recently came here for work, and I've been looking in the community for places to stay. And when I would go from community to community, whenever we're working, last year we were in Yellowknife for 1.5 years, and it was really difficult to find good places to stay while we were working in the community. I would rather personally stay in a basement suite, with someone who lived in town, a little bit more community, and I understand all the problems with snow removal and all this. And same thing in Yellowknife, they did the same thing as this gentleman said. They would 2 days before, they would have signs out saying, hey, the street's closed this day, and then they would come in and just take everything out, and then it was good. Everybody loved it. The thing that I'm worried about, like personally being here, I'm planning on being here for a while, is, living in a crew house, and I know, it's been probably talked about when you have 10 cars in front, but the more it's spread out, the more you can spread out people, the less cars that are piled up in one place, the more opportunity we have to look and rent a place, and there's more options. It's like we'll tend to spread out, but from what I see, it looks like there is going to be an influx of people coming into your community, and I'm just saying from my perspective as a worker, right? So, thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, got Ron at the front.
Addressing the parking.
Just your name for the minute.
Oh, Ron Cartier. If you have 6 people renting in the house, which I'm understanding is a rooming board or a boarding room type situation, which you guys are against, which logically I think it makes sense not to have, then you don't have, if you have 6 guys there with 6 pickups in one basement, right, then you've got a parking problem. If you have a basement suite with 1 guy in there, or maybe his wife and his small children, you're going to have maybe 1 vehicle or 2 vehicles. You don't have this major parking snarl happening, right? So the way I look at it is try to stay away from just boarding rooms, right? And go with suites would be a more or less problems with parking and snow removal and all those sort of things. Right now you see bumper to bumper on some of the streets, vehicles parked up on the sidewalks, and it's crazy. You can't even get around. So and I've been in boom cities. I've worked in every boom city there is at one time or another with the iron workers, and in Canada and in northern states. And I'll tell you right now that it's the same problem everywhere. It's bumper to bumper from one end of the block to the other end of the block on both sides, right? You have vehicles parked everywhere, and it's hard for people to get around, even get in and out of their own yards, you know what I mean? And if you have boarding rooms, this is a big contributor to that problem. If you have a family suite, then you're not going to get those major vehicles. You might have 1 or 2 vehicles extra per lot rather than 6, 7, 8, whatever.
So our current definition of a boarding house is 4 non-related parties living in the same residence. Are then anything more than that then is considered to be a boarding house, and by definition then they have to apply for the business license and meet the requirements for that then.
So you're limiting it to four people now?
That's a current reading, but that's a separate issue from what our residential development bylaw is. But the zoning, the definitions of a boarding house are 4 non-related parties, more than 4 non-related parties living in the residence, then it becomes a boarding house, and you must meet and apply for the business license, et cetera. So.
Yeah, because I've actually stayed in places where they had, the basement was divided into 6 rooms, and all you had in that room was a bed, a chair, a little desk, and a spot to plug a TV set in, and that was it, right? And a microwave, if you wanted to have a microwave. You couldn't have a stove or fridge or anything, but, and that was it. And of course, they wanted $800 a month for each one of those little rooms, right? But lots of times in a boom situation, that's what they run into, because they let it go to that extent where that's what everything was. Every basement was divided up into these little rooms, right? Right now, you're at the leading edge of that, but as time goes on, if it's allowed, that's what you're going to end up with, is these suites being broken up into little parcels. You get more people in, more money coming in, right? So,
thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jonathan Simmons. I'm a local builder and developer as well in this community. So I would have to agree with a few people, like secondary suites in RS2, yeah, that's great. Reducing the size of a suite makes 0 sense. I don't know what that would be achieving. 40% the way it is originally is fine. Parking has been the main issue. I see a few issues just on your comment. You're commenting about people parking on the lawn. Well, we've now reduced the driveway size to 9 meters, so that's what, 29 feet? So I mean, my house, my personal house, my driveway is about 45 feet wide, which I love. I get 2 or 3 vehicles wide when the in-laws come. I can put my trailer there. So I mean, to me that makes no sense. Even with a regular duplex, a 9-meter wide driveway is 29 feet. You cannot get 4 cars wide on that. So what's the point? So there's a parking issue. So let's make the driveways a lot smaller so we can't park off the street now. So I don't know, does that seem funny to a lot of people? A little bit. I mean, when you got a 60-foot wide lot, all you need is 40 feet of driveway to get 4 cars wide. That still leaves 20 feet for them to pile their snow in the middle. So I think that really needs to be addressed. Because even up on 18th, the same thing, we had the same issue. The city made us go back and put topsoil and sod. So now what's happening? People are just driving on the sod and it looks like a big mud hole. So, I mean, I get we need to stick to the rules, but I think we need to kind of put our brains together and say, okay, are we just sticking to the rule because somebody said it's a rule? Or are we sticking to a rule because it makes sense? I mean, right now it doesn't make sense. So, and then everything else in here makes a lot of sense to me. And then on the suite of duplex thing, I would say too, yeah, they don't make a lot of sense the way they are right now. But I say, what if there's an alley? If there's an alley access and you've got parking in the back, then do they make sense? So I think that's something we should still keep on the table for the future. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jody McLean. I've been a citizen here for about 10 years, and I am looking at this from the perspective as a professional planner. I was the city planner at the city of Dawson Creek for almost 2 years, and I've seen how this whole thing's unfolded. As a planner, I tend more towards incrementalist planning, where you make small changes that make as little impact as possible to achieve your goals. When this all started, I was at the city, and that's how we originally drafted the bylaw. But council wanted a more comprehensive view of it, of all the residential development, not just the suites. And so they struck that residential development committee. So that's comprehensive planning. It's another planning theory. And council chose to empower the citizens to write that bylaw. They put the citizens on the committee, and they work with them to make recommendations to council to improve residential development. That's something the city should be congratulated for. It's the highest level of public engagement you can get to is when you have the citizens actually there with you. The suite of duplexes, they came into the bylaw, the zoning bylaw, back in 2011 as a form of trying to get the city to have more affordable housing. That's a different kind of planning. That's called advocacy planning. That's where you're making changes on behalf of somebody or some group that's not adequately represented in governance. So, as a planner, I've been involved in many zoning bylaw updates and complete rewrites, and as well as official community plan rewrites and all that. And what you've seen from the Residential Development Committee is probably the best you're going to get, specific to Dawson Creek, from the people, from professional planners, from your staff, from council. So I urge you to look at all those recommendations individually if you have to, one by one, and see what's useful there, what you can get out of that. And of course, you can, if you adopt this bylaw, you can take out those provisions. One thing I want to say is, or remind council, is that suites are exempted from development cost charges. So when if you're a developer and you have a choice, you can build a duplex or a single-family house with a secondary suite. If you build a duplex, you get charged by the city $3,000 extra because you get charged two dwelling units. If you build a house with a suite, you get charged just the one. So you're foregoing roughly, I forget what the exact figure is, around $3,000 each time you build a suite. And those figures are the development cost charges. They're highly regulated by the province. Those figures aren't random. They're literally how much it costs the city to build the infrastructure behind the whatever it is for. In this case, waterworks. There's also another development cost charge for sewer, and as you guys have seen, the reason why the cost charge for sewer is so low and the charge for sewer on your tax bill now is so high is because the sewer cannot be attributed to new development. It's just development there's just sewer improvements the city needed to do for everybody. So those cost charges are directly attributable to new developments. So every time you're adding a new unit but not charging that unit its fair share cost for the development, for the infrastructure, you're pricing that back on the general taxpayer. The other one I want to say is regarding that 40% versus 50% of the duplex size. Largely, I think it's irrelevant. You guys can't trump the BC building code. You can make whatever number you want. Your building inspector cannot issue a building permit for anything that's contrary to BC building code. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Question?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dan Probilski. I just found out, or I've now lived in this town for 25 years, and I've seen quite a bit of growth. Currently living up on the end of 17th on 86th Ave, and of course on that end of town we see a lot of the new development and a lot of the new traffic. I just have two concerns that I'd like to voice. One is with the parking. Is what's the city's ruling for movement of emergency vehicles? In our cul-de-sac, yesterday, when I left for work, I grabbed a ruler. I drive a Corolla, and as I went through the middle of the street, I had 8 inches on one side of the car and 6 inches on the other side of the car. Now, I'm going to guess a fire truck isn't going to make it. So snow removal is an issue on our street or in the cul-de-sac, and I was just wondering if the city has a requirement that a minimum driving width is available on the streets. And the other one is on a personal note. Everyone talks about affordable housing. Do we have a definition of what affordable is?
Thanks, Dan. I honestly don't know if there's an answer to that. It's probably like how long is a piece of string? When you get there, then you kind of know what it is, right? I have no idea. Yeah, I don't know. Thank you. Mitch, sorry.
Affordable housing is typically gauged to be 32% of households' pre-tax income, generally speaking. So the higher your rents escalate, the lower the affordability becomes, and the harder day-to-day living becomes for some of the residents. Typically, that's what it is.
There you go. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Hi, I'm Alan Modishaw, and I have benefited quite a bit by the growth of the city over the last few years, but I do have to admit that there is some issues, and just wondering if I have had a few developers that have built duplexes with suites, and I've noticed the ones that he's built that had back lanes or alleyways, he put driveways and parking spots in the back as well as in the front, which alleviates the traffic on the front. So if in future in zoning, can we make it so that there's going to be the laneways available in the, say, newer subdivisions so that people can use that? Because that would take half the vehicles off the street.
And then correspondingly with operating costs, we had another $1 million to snow removal over the course of the year.
No, it's their own responsibility to plow the driveway for themselves in the alleyway.
Stratted alleyway.
Anyway, it's just a component to us,
But I'm just
right?
saying that
Sure.
they already, we haven't done lane snow removal for years. There's lots of lanes in this town that are kept open because there's lots of driveways in that back alley and people just keep it open.
Right. Thanks, Al. Further comments?
Hi, my name is Sam Mengalji. I just have a question. If people are going to have the secondary suites, are they willing to pay extra in their taxes? Like, if the services from the city have to increase, maybe whoever's building the suites should pay extra in taxes through BC assessment or something like that.
So I don't know that. I don't know that we would be allowed to, under the community charter, to charge an additional tax rate for a residential property because it has a suite in it. It's a technical question I'd throw over to administration.
Can I make a comment there?
I just want to answer the question first.
So taxation is based on market value. So the market would have to value that property more than a property without a suite.
And we couldn't assign a separate rate to it because of it's got a suite.
Per thousand of assessment.
Yeah.
It applies to whatever the assessment is.
So we can't do that, Sam? Thanks for the question. Further questions?
Carl Channel with Galdic Homes. I substantially like this bylaw, and I think we need to adopt it because majority of my properties this year have been investment properties, either homeowners or investment people. And we need to get some stability in the community because we're at the beginning phases of something great here. And we need to get an end to this one way or the other so we can start moving forward.
Thanks, Carl. Further questions or comments?
This is Jules Bouvier. I lived here for probably over 50 years, I think, in Dawson Creek. And the thing, like, I just come back from Grand Prairie and I see they got apartments all over the city. How come we're building single dwellings all the time when we could be building apartments? We got a lot of contractors, stuff like that. And if we got to get some more land or whatever, let's open the city up some more and get into apartments where you can get people in there. Okay?
Thank you. And so part of what's going on is being driven by the investment community and by the development community and trying to meet that demand that they feel is there. It's not something that we're trying to encourage or discourage. We're just meeting what's going on in the community in terms of what's being built by the investment contractors, developers to meet that need.
Well, let's encourage apartments, I would think.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Bouvier. Further comments? Further questions?
Your Worship, did Mr. Graham have another comment he wanted to make? He was asked to wait a minute.
Yeah, he said he was.
Thanks. Josh Anderson. I'm work for a local design agency here in town, small business. And my wife and I have a house in town, and when we got married, we bought 3 houses in town here. We first got married. I had owned a house, and it was a 4-bedroom, 1 bath, and bought it for $167,000. And then we upgraded. We were both working. We bought a larger house, and bought a bigger one up the hill. And now that we have 2 little kids, we decided that we would. My wife would stay home full time, and so the challenge was to find housing, affordable housing in town that we can afford on one income. And it was pretty tough to find the right house, and on one income in a in a job that isn't directly related to the oil field. And but we found what we liked. But in any case, from what I was thinking about today, in regards to all of this, we have 3 types of people that have stakehold in this issue. You have your long-term residents who are well established and would like to see a nice community and have it stay a nice community. Where you have single-family housing, you don't see a lot of big trucks. You have a nice place to retire. That's those types of people. You have the developers who have the great desire to get the best value out of their investment buck in town, and so they want to see the densification and have all of that opportunity to build the rental items and things like that that'll be paid off for them in only a few years, right? And then there's the other group that is really more interested in just finding affordable housing to make a life for themselves. And there's been lots of talk about the rental units. Obviously, these are the items that always come up. And I think that we should be looking at more in a future concept in regards to finding the right look of the city. And for me, the providing the option for a single providing the option for a basement suite that's going to be a mortgage helper is a great opportunity, especially since we don't see the real estate values going down. It's not just about finding rental, affordable rent. Many of us know that the rent, it's cheaper to have a mortgage payment in town here than it is to rent a place. So, but we want to be able to provide the opportunity for people to build a home and build a life here. As far as I'm concerned, my wife and I, we'd love to stay here for a long time. That's the type of people that I think the city should be built on, is folks that want to invest for the long term, young families like myself. And I think that we should encourage those basement suites. Don't restrict them, because a basement suite, as it's been shared earlier, will on its own help to mitigate the parking issues, because it spreads out all of those vehicles, as opposed to the on the other extreme, you have the duplexes with basement suites. You have that extreme as well, so where you don't have as much space. So that's what I'd like to see. I'd love to see the basement suites stay as they are with the 40%, and then encourage those builders to put those in, because that's going to create a nice looking city down the road, and it's going to be something that can be affordable for folks when they first move to town, but it's also not going to be the urban densification that we're seeing the issues with. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions? Did you get your question answered? Sorry. You had put your hand up when Sam had raised the question about assessment. I just wanted to make sure you were good. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Doug Scott. I have a few comments. I have a lot of comments. Actually, it's hard to remember them all. But, firstly, in regards to LNG and the dam and whatnot, at this point, it's all speculation. And I think it's even more speculative now with oil prices reduced to half price. So whether we ever get LNG, I think there's a lot of people who would bet that we're not going to get it. So to say that we need all these suites in homes because potentially LNG is coming, this is all speculative, and it looks like we're getting a dam, but even that is speculative to some extent. So I currently own 200 doors in Dawson Creek, part owner in a lot of it, but I'm worried about my developments to the extent where everybody wants to build a suite in a house, and in addition, we have Encana announcing 2,000-man camps, and there's camps popping up all over the place. So to what extent do we actually need all this housing? And then another point is, when we do actually need the housing, if there's going to be this big influx of people, it won't take very long for developers to engage and pop up buildings. And I agree with the gentleman over here, density should be in the proper form of apartment buildings and eightplexes and whatnot. We shouldn't see development go in the sense of trying to stick suites and duplexes and have a fourplex call a duplex and a house call a house is a duplex with a suite in the basement. Like, let's call it what it is, and let's not get too excited about worrying about what's going to happen. We can make a change later. And lastly, you know, I was actually against Mrs. Wilbur when she proposed to have this committee some time ago. But I sat in that committee, and I thought it was a real good process after going through it. So, you know, I apologize to Mrs. Wilbur for being hard on her for proposing that. But I sat on that committee, and I thought we did a lot of good work there. A lot of people put a lot of time and effort into that, you know, and so now to listen to a few special interest groups, people from out of town that would like certain things after, you know, we've gone down this road twice already. And a committee has spoke. The residents of Dawson Creek said what they would like. So I've gone to a couple of these public forums now, and I continually hear these special interest groups pounding what they think they should, you know, what would be good. But I think that the Residential Development Committee represented the public, the people that live here every day, the people that drive the streets every day, and them are the people that I think that council would like to keep happy, not the out-of-town person that's taking money away or, you know, or making money here and then going to leave. They're providing a service. We like the fact that, you know, they're helping bring people to town and show the town off. But ultimately, the people, I'm passionate about this and I start shaking, I'm sorry. But anyway, I think council needs to recognize that the development committee did a lot of good work, and I think that's where council needs to sit, is what the work that they did. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Yes,
Hi.
sir.
Hi, my name's Larry Moss. I'm a builder developer. I've been very impressed with all the comments that have come out today. It's been some really good ideas. I think you've got a good plan to move forward with. My feeling is that it's a very young community. The average age is, less than 30, or I believe. And based on that, many young families cannot afford to buy a home. So having that basement suite, or whatever you want to call it, gives them the opportunity to own a property. And so I think, yes, I agree. It's in some cases it's not being dealt with very well. There's issues to deal with, but that's why there's bylaws. And with those bylaws, you need to make a statement, and you get tow trucks to take out cars, or you make arrangements to have certain days where the snow is taken out on the street. So I think there's some good ideas that have come out of today, and obviously in the past, of what the group has come up with. How you deal with supply and demand is the more product that keeps, it's a natural way to keep rental rates at a reasonable rate. It keeps everything in, it's a natural way to keep things under control. That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Hi, my name's Robert Mascott from Imar Homes. I just recently moved to Dawson Creek with myself, my family, and 15 employees of mine. And I guess from listening to this, I didn't actually know the ages in it, but I'm a statistic here. I'm 30 years old, and a lot of my crew members are 30, 29, 28, 22, 25, right? So there's a lot of youth I can see coming in here as well, too. And with the suited duplex is going to be able to give the young people in my generation the opportunity to be able to affordably buy a house and rent either the upper and live in the basement, or, you know, live in the upper and rent the basement out. That's just really important, I think, for the younger community here. I've also lived here for the last 4 months, and I live on 17th Street in the north there, and I haven't once had a problem with parking, haven't had once had a problem with snow removal, haven't once had a problem with anything like that. So, I mean, I guess it's maybe different areas or so, but I don't see it too much.
Thank you. Any question? Thank you for that.
I don't know who said the average age is 30, but I've lived in this community a long time, more than 20 years, and I don't think the average age of residents is 30. The average people in town working temporarily might be 30, but those people aren't all going to stay here. Those people come in here. I fly every weekend to go watch my daughter play hockey, and every weekend there's 10 or 15 of these people, young people on the plane. I talk with them. They're not staying here. They're here to make a few dollars, to build a few houses, to do whatever, and they're going home. I went to the Lower Mainland a couple of weekends ago. There was 15 workers on my plane. And they all live and own homes in Comox, Courtenay, Vancouver Island. None of them are residents here. They work here. So yes, the average age of workers might be under 30, but the average age of the community people that are staying here forever, we've built families, homes, we volunteer, we do all that stuff. The average age of the residents that live here is not 30.
Thank you. Further comments? For a second time, I'll call for further comments.
You said all day, Kevin, you get a chance to go. Just the letter from Mr. Saidai that spoke of nonconformity, it hasn't come up at all. Again, I just wanted to say this is a great little letter, and he brings up something that I didn't talk about and that I encourage council to consider. He talks about adding a clause, which was in 4244, which tried to give a grandfathering for people that were previously existing but didn't comply with the new bylaw. Just encourage council to consider something like that in 4254.
Thank you. For a second, I'll call for a second time for comments.
Your Worship.
Yes? Yep, Councillor Wilbur.
I've been keeping a little tally here as everyone's talking. So parking has been mentioned 57 times. So I would just like to see a show of hands where the concern that you have in your neighborhood is parking. That is the issue, the problem that you're having in your neighborhood. So if you just show me your hand, if that's an issue for you, that would be great. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So for a third and final time, we'll call for comments. So that will conclude the public hearing this evening, and I want to just conclude with a few comments. First of all, we appreciate community, everybody coming out to give us some input into this important bylaw that we're considering. And this council has been dealing with it, both the previous council and this council, for probably a year and a half, since about last September, October, when we started to engage, first of all, with the investors, developers, contractors, realtors, anybody that would talk to us. I think we held a series of probably 15 meetings in that time frame, and then through this year, as mentioned by Doug, the Residential Development Committee, and now the further processes that we've been undergoing through the different stages. It's probably the most important bylaw, it's probably the most important policy governance piece that the council deals with, because there's so many important components for it in terms of guiding the future of our community for the benefit of all of us. And so that's for the business community, the investment community, the residents, in terms of who have built the community over the past 60, 80 years that we've been in existence. So we really appreciate the passion that's attached to the subject, obviously for everybody, because everybody has interests in it. And for us to come up with a bylaw that moves us forward, I think, is the goal of council. And this is that step in terms of trying to move our community forward so that we understand the impacts, we understand the implications for our community and how significant this is for the future. And so I just want to close with that in terms of how much we appreciate all of you coming out tonight and helping guide us in terms of our decision for the public hearing and the impact into our zoning development bylaw for the future of our community and our city, for all of us who have been here all our lives that we love and want to see it be the best it can be. So thank you all for coming out tonight. And with that, I want to call for a motion to close the public hearing. Councillor McFadden, Councillor Javetkoff, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it.